You're watching the slimiest show on the internet, Khantehnt! Here to tell you about the first 5 episodes of Tensei Shitara Slime Datta Ken, or That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, or Tensura, or Slime Isekai.
Slime Isekai, that's what I'm going to go with. But first, you should go over to subscribestar.com/Khantehnt and give us $10 or more to get all our bonus episodes, including the most recent one, Urusei Yatsura 2, Beautiful Dreamer.
なんということもない普通の人生ではもうない。なんということでしょう。こんな人生が待っているとは。いや、スライム生?
So, Slime Isekai. I've seen this whole first season before. We're watching it because the second season's coming next season, just like everything else in the world.
It's going to be a tidal wave of Khantehnt.
It's going to be crazy. There's like 7 sequels that I think we're going to be prepared for next season.
Something like that.
But you haven't seen this before, so what was your first impressions of...
If I ain't seen it, it's new to me, and this show fits that description. So I've heard you talk about how much you like it here and there, last, I don't know, couple of years or whatever. And so it's my first time jumping in. Now, the first thing that's interesting, we were talking about this before, is how much the opening spoils for, like, where the show's gonna go.
Well, because, like, this is a show that, like, episode 1, all we meet is the slime and, like, a dragon.
Right.
The OP then plays at the end of that episode and introduces, like, 50 fucking characters.
Which we still, episode 5, we've met like one, like the Goblin boy is like the only one I think we know.
So it's like each episode you just see like all these like crazy battles and like fight animation and shit and all these wacky characters. And you're just like, what is this show? Like, what is it going to be this show?
Yeah, that's the funny thing. It's in a show like this, an isekai, it can go in all kinds of different directions. And right now, the show feels totally different from what I see in the opening. Because so far, all right, the experience of the first 5 episodes is mostly like our protagonist dies, gets isekai'd, becomes a slime, and then immediately discovers he has an that first of all, he's a slime, so isn't that an interesting change of pace? And then he has like all these obscenely overpowered abilities. The main one being, what is it, Predator? Because he's a sexual predator in real life, and that turns into him being able to absorb things and unwrap all their secrets and stuff. So, but he's been using that power to just be unbelievably overpowered compared to every enemy that he's gone up against. So if I had to like classify the show based on the first 5 episodes, I would say like, oh, this is like a comedy where the main character is overpowered across the board and will defeat anyone instantly, but there's like little bits of drama sprinkled in. But I don't know if it's going to stay that way.
I would say it's always in a realm of... I mean, Victor had compared it to a shonen action manga, like saying it looks like it's going to go that way. It kind of is in tone, where it's like there are, you know, big serious battles and stakes in certain parts, but like it's never going to be like, it's never going to like have a hard shift and now it's a dark show or something like that. You know, it's more along like the tone of God of High School or something like that. Just like easy, breezy, beautiful. But also
slimy
like,
girl.
Yeah, people get their heads cut off and stuff. So like,
it's
simultaneously like, haha, wow, fun. This is a real comfy show. And then like people get their heads cut off. You're like, oh, things do matter. But I think that's a big part of what I like about this show is like, I like narratives with stakes. I don't necessarily want everything to be super dramatic. Like, my reaction to things, like especially in a show like this where, you know, a lot of the characters who do die might be like monsters or people you don't know that much. You know, like there's those sentimental scenes that you get in isekai shows. I'm thinking about when we covered like Cautious Hero, and there were scenes where it would try to get like sincerely sentimental in the middle of like a comedy show. And it could not pull it off because it's like, well, I don't care about these little incidental characters and stuff. Like these little attempts at drama are not actually going to make me feel anything. This show has dramatic stakes without having to be like all tear in your beer about it. You know what I mean? Like there's not like the overwhelming dramatic music and all that so much. Like
that's generally true. Although, and this is the thing, it's in episode 5 we kind of get the most like it's such a left turn. So far our main character's been very what's the word? I guess jaded. He's a 37-year-old man who is like an experienced worker. He's pretty jaded about things, and then he wakes up as a slime and he's having a fun adventure, doing crazy stuff and being ridiculously overpowered. And it doesn't look like anything is gonna be much of a threat to him, considering he absorbs like a calamity level monster of this dragon like immediately. So it's like, okay, I guess this is the power level we're dealing with. But so for him, the world is mostly a joke, and he's just going along like whatever. Like, what is his current quest? Protect these goblins because the dragon's gonna. All right, I guess I'll do that. He doesn't really give much of a shit, but he's nice enough to care. But then we meet these other characters, like in episode 5, where, oh my God, the drama. There's a dwarven blacksmith, and he has a rocky relationship with his old like former lieutenant in the army, and the king saw such potential both of them. Like, meanwhile, I'm like, look, I get what you're doing here. I don't care about these people. I haven't been endeared to the blacksmith guy. I like. He was helpful to our main character. I'm ingratiated into wanting him to succeed, and he's gonna join our party. So I'm like, okay, I like this guy. But we almost spend more time characterizing just the generic nobleman guy, and the scenes there
is funny as well because he has not yet, but I think will come back later in the series.
That would be shocking if that's true.
Okay, so this is not a show where like anybody who you've seen so far is going away. Like, everyone is relevant. Like,
see, I didn't think those goblin people.
They're there forever. They're like main characters.
I've heard that. Yeah, I'd heard the goblins stick around. If I didn't know that, I would have been like, we're getting past this in like episode 2. But I guess not.
Well, it was surprising for me as well. Like when I watched this show for the first time, particularly with the first episode, all the fucking like crazy animation tricks and stuff with the slime, all the like inventive visuals with the great sage and all that, really blew my mind because I was just like, I'm watching an isekai, right? Like, I'm just watching like a generic isekai anime, aren't I? Like, why does it look so fucking good?
I looked it up. This is Studio 8-bit, and I can't remember anything else they've done on hand, but...
They have not done much. And I don't think anything they've done is as good as this.
I think they did Snafu, if I remember correctly. Oh, whatever.
They might have done one of the seasons.
The animation is so much more impressive than I would have expected for a show of this scale. And it almost feels weird that they're putting so much effort into it, considering that their story is kind of, middling.
So I had thought that too, which is why I asked them about it, because at Otakon, it so happened the assistant director, the voice of Ranga, the big wolf.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who the third person, it might have been a producer. We're all at Otakon, so I literally asked them, why did you put so much effort into this show? Like tons of shows like this get made all the time. Like I appreciate it because it elevated it to a level where I enjoyed the show. And they basically just said, like, we had all read the source material and just really loved it. Like,
oh, you love to see that.
Yeah, like everybody, they had found this manga. They like everybody in the office just loved it. And like when I rewatched the first episodes, I immediately understood why. What is it that made everybody love this so much? And it's just this character, Rimuru Tempest, is just that good. He's just so fucking based. And like in the first episode, when it's just him like in Japan, like I've seen so many scenes of, guy gets hit by a truck, whatever. But it's that whole scene is really well animated. Tons of detail in like the character animation and just like the facial expressions on like you get so much personality out of him just in that opening scene of just him being so carefree and like just like, I'm 37 and I'm a virgin, but it's okay.
He's the happiest 37-year-old virgin I've ever seen.
Like he's like, I've got a good job. Things are going fine. I like my coworkers are nice. He like takes care of his kohai. He literally dies by jumping in front of a knife to save one of the younger people who works for him.
Yeah.
Just because that guy has a girlfriend and something to live for and protect. And he's like, well, that's more important than my life, I guess.
It was a heroic death, no doubt. So it sets a good tone for his character.
So like you've got this guy who, Rimuru's reaction to everything is always like, well, okay, I'm in this situation now, like, what do I do? There's never like an overreaction. It's like, what? I'm surrounded by goblins.
Which is why,
except for if it's sexual. If it's like, oh, elf,
right.
elf.
That was pretty much the one time. Like I loved when he's getting dissed because he's a little monster. People find him gross sometimes. When like the nobleman says like, oh, fuck this guy, and pours his beer on him, and he's like, He feels anger for like a split second, and he's like, "Whoa, sorry to fly off the handle like that." He didn't even like yell or do anything.
He like very calmly like says like,
"Excuse me, sir, that was rather rude what you just did to me just now. I think that the madam's dress may have been moistened as well. You really should have thought of her well-being."
Yeah, and in his mind he's like, I can't let my short temper.
Compared to everyone around him, or your typical, I'm thinking of like, you know, fucking, what's his name, Kazuma. Like, what would Kazuma's reaction be? What is it?
Which would be great in that show.
In that show, it would work well, yeah.
But yeah, in like Rimuru's just so like nonchalant and laid back, and like there's not really much fear. There's no reason to fear for his life. He died already. He's just like he's just here to chill now. He's like, I'm still alive. I'm a slime. All right, where the elf titties at? You know, like
Indeed.
And he just kind of like each time he comes across a problem, he's just kind of like, oh, well, I guess I'll try my hand at this. Why not? Maybe I'll help everybody out. And then
it always works out great so far.
So far, it just works out. And like, mostly what this show is about is like what we saw in episode 3, where he leads this little gang of goblins, these adorable little fucking baby goblins who suck. They're just going to get annihilated by these direwolves. Like, there's no chance of them winning. So direwolves show up, and Rimuru just immediately kills their boss, and it's just like, what y'all gonna do? And they're like, I guess we're gonna join you. And that's pretty much the tenor of the series, is like, threat arrives to his town, they meet the threat, and then like after defeating them go like, all right, are you gonna join us, or do we have to kill all of you? You know, that kind of thing. And as they grow in power, then they have to deal with bigger and bigger threats. So it's like that's the sort of escalation. In these 5 episodes, we see him like meet goblins, then recruit direwolves to their team, and then bring some dwarves in to help build shit. So we are going to see some rapid escalation in how nice the Goblin Town is and like what they're capable of.
Well, see, that element of growth I like a lot. And I was going to say, one of the elements that they really haven't touched on like at all, the concept of like, oh, every once in a while, Mr. Slime, we hear that, humans get summoned from other lands. You got reincarnated, which is like a rarer version of that, but most, we bring people in, they get special abilities, and what we're hearing like in the wind, there are some like Japanese-looking fuckers out there who are like fighting the Demon King's army, which is established, it's out there somewhere.
There's a cute Japanese girl who seems to be in Rimuru's future, according to the magic ball at the whorehouse.
But the element there seems to be, even as Rimuru first gets there, so I'm wondering, okay, why is he here? Why was he summoned? What's going on? I want to know some more details. I don't really care, but just as a general rule, I'd like to eventually find out what brought him here, what's going on. But notably, he's summoned to what appears to be like the cave of the dragon. What's his name? Whatever.
Veldora.
Veldora.
Veldora Tempest.
That's right. Well, he gives him the name, and that's the thing. He establishes relationships with this, like, one of the 4 calamity dragons of the world, who is, surprisingly cordial and nice and wants someone to talk with.
He's been trapped in a cave for 300 years, and he's very bored. And so he meets the slime, and I really love the whole scene between them at the start. Also, I'll tell you this, and this is kind of a shame about the anime adaptation, is that in the manga and light novels, every so many chapters, there will be a Veldora chapter where he goes back through his perspective on everything that happened, because he's watching all of it happen from inside of Rimuru.
So I was going to ask...
Yeah, he's conscious.
He seems like he's dead. He got absorbed and devoured by Slime Man, which seemed like the end of the road for him.
The idea is that he's still inside of that barrier that he's trapped inside of.
Okay.
Rimuru is trying to break it from the outside while he breaks it from the inside. So they're both trying to break the barrier from both sides, but that's all just happening somewhere inside of this creature.
In hammer space.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
And so like in the books, every once in a while, Tempest will give you like his perspective on events, and like it's always pretty entertaining. But like in this show, unfortunately, you pretty much don't see the dragon like at all again. But like so far, but like. The conversation between them is really interesting, because it's like this dragon obviously would ordinarily be like, have no interest in talking to a slime.
Yeah, right.
But it's the combination of the fact that this is obviously a special slime, and that it even has the gall to talk to him, and that he has no one else to talk to. And as the conversation goes, he gets to a point where he's like so impressed with Rimuru and his resolve that he's like, you know what? Like we're fucking soul buddies now. Like you and I, because Rimuru asks him if he wants to be his friend, and he's like, I've never you're asking to be my friend? No one's ever done this. Absolutely. But he doesn't become his friend. They become family. They invent a family name to share. They are literally brothers in arms and also inhabiting the same body. So like they're basically the same person on some level. I think that like the dragon's intimidation is part of why Rimuru has so much aura. Like it's not just that he's powerful, but
it's clearly implied there's like people are like, whoa, he's just like Veldora. There's something going on, some mixture of the two. Yeah. It makes me wonder. The fact that he was summoned to this cave, and we hear about summoning rituals or whatever, I'm wondering, because Veldora, it seems really convenient that the slime man showed up at this like great time of need. I mean, Veldora's just like super bored, was willing to befriend basically anyone with a fucking pulse. So I'm wondering, like, did Veldora like summon him? Is this what's going on? Will this be explained in some way? Because it's literally in the cave with Veldora is where he shows up. So I don't know if that's going to be true or not. But in any case, it just makes me wonder what exactly is the link here, and why is it so important that the fact that Veldora's escaped now is like changing the world. Everything is changing now. Animals are attacking places.
Well, particularly it's that like the presence of Veldora in this mountain like was scaring shit away. So like not only like both monsters and humans were kind of unwilling to go through this pass, and so now that like fear is gone, then all kinds of shit's just gonna start moving around that wouldn't ordinarily.
Right.
But yeah, we'll start seeing the effects of that in later episodes. But yeah, like, so the author of this series, and maybe this is why the first 5 episodes feel the way they do, because like we've both said, it doesn't feel like it's gonna become the show that the OP looks like.
Yeah.
And like you were saying as well, you would expect him to just kind of leave these goblins and go off to do something else. The author had said that like basically after finishing the first volume is when he realized what the series was going to be.
Sure.
So I'm thinking that some of that disjointedness in these early episodes, like maybe he did not plan to have these goblins be real characters. Like this was all just first things that came to mind, and then like once he had them go to the Dwarf Kingdom, I think that's when he was like, okay, we're gonna make this like a base building thing, like bring people back and make
that. That's interesting, and I could see how things are evolving maybe in his mind. This being my first exposure to it, because kind of the element I like the most is this kind of growth element that's happening. Not even like the main character's so ridiculously OP and is able to grow at such unbelievable rates. That's interesting, but like more interesting is like this element of family going on that you were talking about, like the fact that him and the dragon give themselves the name Tempest. They become like a family unit. That certainly seems like magical and important and meaningful. And then like when he grants names to the whole goblin town, that's another interesting element that I haven't really seen in much other places. Granting these nameless monsters names evolves them physically, like and mentally, it seems, and they're growing and changing and
it
able to do
like,
more.
Not only does it evolve them immediately, but it like puts them on the track to be capable of evolution, basically.
Yeah.
So like they can keep developing now that they're named.
It's like they've gone from NPC to PC, and now they have access to like the experience point gaining system or stuff like that.
I think it's pretty much exactly that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the way that the scene plays out, that like everybody keeps telling him like, are you sure you want to name all of us? And he's like, yeah, whatever. And then he just like dissolves and passes out for 3 days, wakes up, everybody's beefy and beautiful, and like it's a pretty great scene.
Seeing the elder go from, manlet to from 5'10" to 6'1" god was
And see, that's
massive.
already a part where it was starting to get me, because it's like he deserved it, man. That elder worked so like he was, was really looking out for his people. Like when you see like when you're introduced to the goblins and they're all just like they're fucked. Like their best guy, their only named guy is dead. They're all tiny. There lives 60 of them, 100 direwolves, and it takes 10 of them to beat one. They're
that
fucked.
math don't check out.
So like, they've completely ingratiated themselves to Rimuru. They're just pathetic. And so to see them go from like these groveling, pathetic little goblins to these big, massive badasses who are still like so appreciative that they're like losing their shit crying over Rimuru. They're just like, oh, it's good stuff, man.
It is nice. They are the most attractive and endearing goblin characters since Goblin Slayer.
Especially
Kill 'em all.
Gobta is the absolute most handsome of all the.
That was a great gag when everyone else has evolved. And interestingly, the male goblins become what was it? Hobgoblins. The female goblins become goblinas.
La goblina.
I've never heard this distinction made in any fantasy before, but okay. But the fact that guy, what was his name? Gobu man?
Gobta.
Gobuta, yeah.
Gobuta.
Everyone else evolves and he just hasn't changed at all, despite getting a name. Good gag. What can I say but good gag?
And then, of course, he ends up being the one who comes on the journey with Rimuru, so you get plenty of Gobta action. He'll be around. He's a great meme character throughout the whole show. But this is a show where it's definitely one where, like, because of the fact that the characters do stick around, all of them kind of, grow on you as the show goes on. So for me, going back through, it's kind of that like nostalgic feeling of like, hey, this is how all my old buddies met, can't wait to see them go on this ride again. Let's see if it's even more fun the second time. I would say it was pretty much just as fun the second time. It's like, it's not like there's anything crazy that you're gonna be like, oh, I didn't pick up on this the first time through, but it just, again, has that feeling of like, who the characters are, so like, you can look at their decision making through the lens of like already knowing them and kind of be like, oh, all right, yeah, I get why all this stuff was going on. It's because this stuff's gonna happen later,
Yeah, that's always enjoyable, and I don't know. I suppose I am interested to see where things are going. The fact that they're like recruiting and doing town building, Dark Cloud style, is kind of cool.
Dark Cloud's a great comparison.
Yeah.
Especially because this show is very comfy. Like, again, even though it has like drama and like, real battles and stakes at parts, like it's just such a friendly show because Rimuru is a friendly person who's like, again, mentality is like, I don't think Rimuru ever views anybody as an enemy, like inherently. It's always like, he's a salesman. Like Rimuru is an amazing salesman. He like shows up, just kind of sweet talks people, figures out what they want, how he can get it for them, and then it's like, all right, well, I can do that for you, but like the very first thing he says to the goblins when they're like begging him on hands and knees is like, what can you do for me if I save you? And he literally says like, I don't actually want compensation. I'm just like...
just trying to feel him out.
Yeah,
give him
exactly.
A test, yeah.
Figuring,
see,
what
are
if I
they
can
willing to
get
put
something?
down? Yeah, that too.
And they put down their undying loyalty. And loyalty is the main thing I think Rimuru basically trades in throughout this show is do things for people, get their loyalty, and like, it's interesting too because you see the product of his attitude is that people trust him extremely fast because it's so clear that he's got their best interest in mind.
Right.
That like, the dragon like teams up with him right away. And the dwarf blacksmith who basically, the second that he punches the noble in the face, it's like you can tell that in his mind, before he even threw the punch, it's like, well, I don't want to be a part of the system that trashes my buddy. I want to be part of my buddy's system.
Indeed, indeed.
And that's also why, even though I agree with you that the scene where the king is shitting on the magistrate guy is a little like long and heavy-handed for what seems like a one-off character.
Yeah.
Who again does not show up again in season 1, but I've heard he does become relevant again later.
They do give him some elements of like potential, like, oh, he was a good man. Other people are vouching for him.
Well, the fact that he like was so crushed by the king, like telling him like, "No, you're fired." Like, but I love that the reason he got fired is because Rimuru had supplied the kingdom with this like amazing potion.
Yep.
And the king's like, "Do you fucking know what this is? Like, you pouring like a drink on that slime." Like, just fucked up public relations with, like, one of the most powerful entities in existence.
Yeah.
You are retarded, get out, And it was just really satisfying to see that the setup of this scene is like, oh, it's the unreasonable fantasy world where there's a caste system and there's a magistrate, and if you punch him, they're going to send you to the mines for 20 years. It's totally ridiculous. He's faking the injury to make it look worse. And the king just sees through all this. Is like, well, I know who these two people are. Like... That's another part of like what makes it feel more like a community oriented is they don't like forget about the fact that fantasy towns are small and almost everybody would probably know each other, like even if it's a kingdom. So like, and these people were both soldiers. So the king's like, hey, I know you were one of my top guys. Do you want to be one of my guys again? And he's like, nah, your system sucks. He's like, all right, get the fuck out then.
Although it does make you wonder, if it was just a random guy who had like crossed the nobleman just accused him of something, I don't think he would have been able to get out of that situation as well as our our blacksmith boy did, but hey, you know, not every system is perfect.
It's hard to know. It's hard to know exactly what would have happened, but yeah, I liked the reasoning. I liked the idea that the king just knew what was going on and saw it do it, and it was like, get the fuck out.
Well, that was even better because it's clearly implied after that like the king doesn't really trust the noble guy anyway, because he knows that this explosion that was, you know, not to get into the details of what happened, like that this lie, that the guy is a liar and blamed this other guy for this accident that happened, even though the king knows it was him. So he's just piling lies on lies. He's an untrustworthy guy. So he's like, get the fuck out of here. I don't want to work with people like you anymore, which is understandable.
But I've never seen, I guess the reason I kind of knew that this character had to come back is that I've never seen a show actually try to have like that villainous character even have like a shot at redemption.
Yeah.
Whereas they're like very clearly trying to make it clear that's going to happen. Where it's like, well, he's actually a good guy in certain ways. He's really hardworking. You know, he really dedicated himself to the king, and like even after he gets told off, he's like, oh, I just wanted to please you ever since I was a kid. So it's like, you can easily see where the energy that could make this guy into a good guy is, you know, which is why you can believe it would happen. But again, there's no payoff to this in this season.
That just reminds me, there's the apt comparison is very early in One Piece. There's this guy Helmeppo, who just is a spoiled child.
He is very Helmeppo-esque.
He's exactly Helmeppo, but then Helmeppo just gets one good punch. Finally, somebody stands up to him and beats his ass, and he's like, holy shit, I'm gonna join the Navy and fucking, you know, become a good boy, which he does.
But his father's take was, my son deserved it, but I'm gonna kill you anyways.
Yeah, right. He's just, he wants to see blood. But I liked, I think that's something unique about, oh my god, Miruru, what's the name? Rimuru. A unique take on a character who's very patient as like an older man in this new world. When like I don't think another like protagonist in history, maybe Cautious Hero would have done this, but the fact that when they get arrested because they broke this like little law or whatever in the Dwarven kingdom, and they're in jail, and the slime just like jumps out. Like, he can clearly leave anytime he wants. And it's like, there's like a crisis going on. Hey, here's some healing potion. Like, just take this. Use it to help everyone. And the dwarf guard says...
It's a genius move because he like gives the dwarf the potions. The dwarf runs off with the potions. Rimuru stays in jail patiently.
He stays there.
Because he knows that it will be better bargaining power when the guy comes back and everything he said was true and he was a good boy and now he, you know...
I was just thinking... Watching anime, watching at least one anime, as I've done in the past, there is like no chance that he actually stays in the cell, which is just a very reasonable, like sure, wastes your time, but it's a smart move. But he actually did. And I was like, wow, that's more patience than like any character in history.
I definitely think like...
Except for Cautious Hero.
This might be assumptive, but like with the hero being older and this being originally a web novel, I'm going to assume the writer is also older.
I would bet it.
Probably in his 30s, especially since he makes all these like old references that the character is, you know, like being an old guy about. I think that is the best. I think that's the biggest benefit to this series. It's just like the older perspective, the fact that the characters don't act like dumbass kids, and like also this like think about how fucking mind-blowing this actually is. So far, there are no waifus in this show yet.
There was the there was the harem of elves, but those aren't waifus. Those are just, you know, random sluts.
5 episodes in, no waifu.
I mean, I get the hint that like the other Japanese girl, like she's gonna be a character. In the opening, there are some, they don't really look particularly waifu-y. You can spot a waifu in a show a mile away. None of them look particularly like they fit the bill. So I mean, because maybe when he fucking goes, you know, girl body, he will be the waifu.
Well, and what I was gonna say is like, it's because this show doesn't need waifus. It has such a great main character. Like most anime is about the main character doesn't fucking matter. Like most of these isekai shows, the main character is just the same generic fucking dude. Yeah. And it's just about which hot chick you like the most out of his harem. Rimuru is like an actually aspirational character who you might want to be like, and you know. But there's a lot of interesting like subtextual stuff in the fact that like he's an amorphous slime. Like, he was a dude, he dissolved, now he's just a slime.
Yep.
He's voiced by a woman, but clearly doing like an androgynous voice, which is really adorable. And, well, I guess I won't say too much about like when he finally can transform into the body, but you know, just in general, like he doesn't have to eat or sleep or like feel any human compulsions. So it's like basically if you were able to like dissolve down to just being a mind, you know, like
Yeah, that's true.
a mind and sludge, and like his ability to do things basically comes down to like eating it and reproducing it, like Kirby.
Like he couldn't speak or see at first. Those were abilities he had to figure out how to do
Exactly.
in this new body. Yeah.
So yeah, I just really love the idea of like, you know, the ReZero is like starting life in another world from zero. This is you are
truly
not
zero.
Human in any way anymore. Like
That's true.
you're a fucking blob. And like the way that recontextualizes things for him, he's very comfortable with it. Like it does not take that long to get used to being a slime.
I was thinking when we first started this, I was like, I feel like I might go insane if I don't like. I mean, phantom limb syndrome is a thing. If you just don't have an arm, it's like you're gonna feel your brain is like wired to think that's normal. But I am prepared to grant that with isekai magic, when you do the transformation, they cure phantom limb syndrome. You're fine. You'll be fine.
I think part of why this happened, because it will eventually be clarified. Rimuru does not, even in a human form, does not have genitalia. Rimuru can't fuck.
Oh.
So,
okay.
as much as Rimuru loves to be in boob paradise here, as we've depicted, he cannot actually have sex. So
That should be the quest. That should be Rimuru's true quest to
Well,
obtain genitalia.
Well, and the funny thing about it is, like, so at the start of the series, this isn't really a spoiler. It makes the most sense to talk about this now, but at the start, he's a virgin. He's talking about how like the only thing missing from his life ever has been a girlfriend, or like sexual attention. So in this scene, he gets like all of the sexual attention you could ever dream of. He's a cute little ball getting played with by a bunch of hot chicks, just stuffing him in their tits. It's like, this is it. This is the peak of sexuality. And I think he kind of has the same opinion of like, oh, I did it. Like, I got all the boobs I wanted. And, like, he's not that worried about it.
It's a very
anymore.
childish view of what sexuality means or what sex is supposed to be. But that's all right.
Well, again, he can't have
learn.
sex, so it's just kind of like...
Where's the intimacy, though, Rimuru? Where's the connection with someone, maybe to build a future together? Yeah. Then again, he can just probably split infinitely, like an amoeba, and form infinite versions of himself.
I didn't even think about that.
Maybe. I don't know how slimes work.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll ever get a cloning ability.
You'd think that would be a way to go. I don't know.
Well, I can't really talk anymore without getting into spoiler territory.
all right.
But yeah, these first 5 episodes are like, I would just say they're like okay. Like storytelling wise, there's nothing that special about it. It sets up like a nice tone and characters that I can talk about this way, but I wouldn't have been able to talk about them that way if I hadn't already watched the show and had more of a sense of what it's gonna be. So like, you know, it's really the production quality, the sheer love and attention to detail. The fact that before the ED was like complete in episode 5 or whatever, there was a different ED in each episode, which had like clip show, but also like one of the environments from that episode with Rimuru crawling through it. It
really
just looked
like
really
that.
cool, and it was just like the sheer attention to detail. The fact that like there's a scene where Rimuru turns into the Storm Wolf. And then when he turns back, he still has like a little wolf ear and tail for just a second. Fucking adorable. Like, it's like, there is no other like isekai show I've seen that has this level of fucking care put into it. It really baffles the mind.
Well, Konosuba put a lot of work into the
Konosuba's
saggy
pretty-
tits that the director loves so dearly.
Konosuba, Log Horizon, maybe like... There's a few that are like close, but just the first episode of Slime Isekai still blows my mind with how much like weird inventive stuff happens that I had never seen before. You know.
The animation is fairly tremendous.
Yeah. What did you give your overall review of these 5 episodes?
Well, not to be too much of a poo-pooer, but basically the main character being funny was a strong suit. The animation was a constant highlight. But again, there's kind of less of that as we go along, as we're like, oh, let's listen to the king, let's listen to this lord. Okay, all right. I don't know. It hasn't really like grabbed me. If like the comfiness vibe is where we're going, that's fine. There's quite a few comfy I could go watch Yuru Camp Season 2 when it comes out, which I think is the same season as Season 2 of this is coming out. So it's not bad. I guess I am kind of truly intrigued by like the opening. It's like, when are we getting to like all that shit that's going on there?
We're getting all this Shonen crazy shit.
I'm a little worried that there's not going to be much interesting tension with really the main character or anything, because every single thing has been so easy for him to just overcome by putting even the slightest amount of effort into it. Like the fact that at one point, there's a guy who, the blacksmith guy in episode 4 and 5, he's got to make these swords, and these magic swords that take a special material. He's got an order for 20, he's only made one, he's missing materials, and he's out of time. So Slime Man, first of all, supplies him the magic ore he needs. The guy's like, oh my god, just this alone is like beyond what I could possibly imagine or ever repay you. And then he also just literally absorbs the sword and just makes them all instantly, making this man's life work utterly meaningless now. He has no point. This man can do anything you can do and more.
I don't know if you were not quite paying attention when he says it, but in the bar, there's a conversation they have about this where Rimuru's like, "Is it like a problem that I like made all those swords?" And he's like, "Well, it's a little frustrating, but I'll just have to forge a sword so good you can't cop." That's
so,
what he
okay,
said.
so they're acknowledging that like there perhaps is still a purpose for the plebes that aren't the godlike being.
Possibly.
Well, that's a comforting thought.
And actually, I do kind of like that as a message to some degree, though, because like. Yeah, Rimuru can do everything by himself, but it's just himself. Like, if his goal is to help everybody to help themselves, well, he can't help everybody.
The existence of Superman did not invalidate the point of everyone's life on Earth.
It also didn't end crime.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Superman can't stop every crime.
Right. Okay, yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So I kind of just want to see him kind of push, because I'd love to see how far these powers really go, and you know, just more stakes would be good as they go along.
I definitely think it opens up the more characters get introduced, and we've kind of finished the first real like arc. There's basically I would say that what we've just seen, and then like the next 3 episodes kind of get us to a similar way to like how ReZero feels like it kind of starts again after a certain point. This show kind of feels that way a little bit, not as dramatically, but like there's like kind of a moment where it's like, okay, this is now what the show is going to be like, you know, and we haven't reached that yet.
But to put it in those terms, watching this versus ReZero, I'd pick this any day of the week and twice
absolutely.
on Sunday, baby. Any fucking day, because this
This
just
was
kind
not
of
a challenge to watch in any way, shape, or form.
The worst it did was have like one scene that went on a bit too long. But yeah, it wasn't bad. So I mean, I'm down to watch more. I want to see where it goes, and it just keep up the quality animation, and that's like enough for me, because this is good stuff.
It's never going to look as good as episode 1, but...
Well, that's okay. That's all right.
All right, everybody, that's it for Khantehnt, which is a phrase that you could record yourself saying and send to us, and we'll put it at the end of the video, like the one you're about to see. You can do that through Twitter or our Discord, linked in the description.
Yeah, go join, talk about the shows we're talking about. There's like 100 or 200 people in there already talking about all kinds of crazy Khantehnt-related things.
And give us
go
money
hang out with them.
on Subscribe.
Give us money, $10 on our subscribestar.com/Khantehnt. Bonus episodes, there's 3 and more coming soon.
And don't forget, we're talking about Attack on Titan. We're talking about the slime. We're talking about the new shows.
Dr. Stone, we're going to get to
Dr.
soon.
Stone soon. It's all happening.
It's all happening. See you soon, everybody. Bye.